So today we are here at Slaughter in Southwold with Sophie Hannah. We've just listened to a fantastic talk about your writing for the Christie estate and writing your Poirot novels. But before you started doing those, what kind of things were you writing?
Well, I started off as a poet, so in 1995, gosh, that seems like a long time ago.
Just to say a few years ago.
I published my first poetry collection, and then for the next 10 years I was only a poet. I wrote nothing but poetry. I wrote poetry fairly obsessively, and I toured around all over the country, all over the world as a sort of performing poet. And I was quite happy being a poet. It never really occurred to me that I ought to write anything else. And then when I had my first baby in 2002, I had an idea for something, and I thought, that isn't a poem. That cannot be made into a poem idea. So I wrote this novel, which was a thriller, a psychological thriller, and that became my first published crime novel. And that was called Little Face. And then I wrote contemporary psychological thrillers for the next few years, probably about another 10 years, and then I was asked to write Poirot novels. So now I'm writing Poirot novels and contemporary crime novels. Those are the two sort of main strands of what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. Is there any chance that you'll go back to writing poetry at all?
I still do write the odd poem. And interestingly, I mean, I don't know whether I'll ever go back to writing mainly poetry, because I still feel as though crime fiction is where most of my creative energy is. But I did last year write a murder mystery musical.
Oh, fab!
Because I love musicals, always have. My parents raised me to love musicals. We went to see, Guys and Dolls, West Side Story, Oklahoma. And early last year, I went to watch my daughter starring in a school play. It was Romeo and Juliet, and they had this brilliant new drama teacher who decided that Romeo and Juliet would be more fun if they turned it into a musical. And I was sitting there watching it thinking, this is definitely the least boring Shakespeare production I've ever seen, because there are all these amazing song and dance numbers. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I love musicals, I write poetry, I love crime fiction. Why don't I write a murder mystery musical?
Amazing.
So I did, and it was performed at my children's school with a cast of very talented teenagers, and now it's about to embark on a tour of of crime fiction festivals. So it's going to Norwich.
Oh, fantastic.
Norwich Crime Fiction Festival. It's going to the Bloody Scotland Festival in Stirling, and it's going to the Cambridge Literary Festival, and it may be coming to Southwold next year. I have just pitched it to
that would be
Slaughter
amazing.
Southwold, so it may be here, because this hall that we're in would be the perfect venue for it, actually.
Yeah, and what's that called?
It's called, well, in its first incarnation at the school, it was called The Mystery of Mr. E.
Oh, clever.
Which I love as a title. Then a West End producer expressed an interest in it and said he wants to try and raise the money to do it professionally, and he wants to keep that title for his version of it. So the version that is touring around literary festivals at the moment is called The Generalist, a murder mystery musical.
Okay.
Because the detective character who solves the murder mystery is not a detective, he's a generalist who does all kinds of strange jobs for all sorts of peculiar people.
Wow.
So it's just called The Generalist, a murder mystery musical, and it will hopefully be at Slaughter in Southwold next year in this venue, the Arts Centre.
Well, if that doesn't drag people in, I don't know what will. That sounds absolutely amazing. I'm excited about that already, because I love musicals, and my friend Jane is a very big fan of musicals. So yeah, so we will definitely be coming to see that, won't we? It's absolutely amazing. Did you wrote the script? Did you write the music for it as well?
So I wrote the play, and I wrote the lyrics to all the songs, and the music was written by a friend of mine, very talented composer called Annette Armitage. And so she plays the music while the show is being performed.
Oh, fantastic.
But I was quite surprised that some of the songs, when I set out to write the lyrics, which I did first, and then I sent them to Annette and she added the music, some of the lyrics I found when I was writing them, a tune just came to me. So for those ones, I actually recorded myself singing the tune that had come into my head, and I think for all of them, Annette she either used my tune as a starting point, or she just used it completely and translated it into music. So I do feel as though I haven't written any, I can't write music, so Annette wrote all the music and she made it much better, but I did write the tunes for some of them.
Oh my goodness, where do your talents end? That's absolutely amazing. So can we talk briefly, I'm just really excited about that, I just can't stop thinking about that. But talk briefly a bit about what you're doing with the Agatha Christie estate, that's quite difficult to say, and the Hercule Poirot stories. How did that come about? I know you spoke about it in the in the talk that you did, but just for our listeners, can you just explain how that came about?
Well, my agent was in a meeting with Agatha Christie's publishers, not about Agatha Christie, about something completely different. And he was sitting next to a shelf full of Agatha Christie novels, and he remembered that I was a big Agatha Christie fan, and he just suggested to the HarperCollins team that they should ask me to write new Poirot novels, and they said, oh no, the family would never want anything like that to happen, which was also what I would have said. If he told me he was planning to do this, I would have said that. But it turned out that just at that very moment, the Christie family did want somebody to do just that, and had just decided to try and look for somebody to write new Poirot novels. So it was an amazing coincidence of timing.
Yeah. So you're obviously a fan of Agatha Christie.
Huge fan. I was obsessed with her as a teenager and read and collected every book she published.
So how are you kind of intimidated by this project? Do you feel a little bit terrified of stepping in her shoes?
Not really. I mean, I just felt it was an incredibly exciting thing to be asked to do. And I figured that the worst that could happen is it wouldn't work and I'd write a bad book. And if I wrote a bad book, then I just wouldn't give it to I decided that I would try my best, and if I wasn't happy with what I produced, then I would say to the family, I'm terribly sorry I haven't been able to do this. But it was weird. As soon as I started trying to actually do it, I just felt, this feels right, it feels good. Sometimes I write something and I think that is just not, it's not proper, it's not good. And with the Poirot novels, all of them actually, I've really felt this is what I should be writing, this is good.
Yeah.
So I guess I've just kind of acquired a real belief in it now. And also the books have done so well, and I've had so many emails from all around the world and tweets and messages on Facebook saying that people absolutely love the book, so that's really encouraging as well.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, because Agatha Christie is so well known and so well loved, have you had any negative response to your books where they're like, this isn't right, this isn't what Agatha Christie would do, or has it been mainly positive?
It's been overwhelmingly positive in terms of what people have said to me. I think the Agatha Christie official website has had a few people saying, we don't approve of this. I mean, I have had some negative responses. I've had people say, I just don't think this should ever happen. One writer shouldn't write another writer's characters. And I actually, I always say, well, then don't read my books.
Yes,
just ignore them and read Agatha's books, which is absolutely fine. I understand if people don't want to read Poirot written by somebody else. What I find fascinating is when people, because there are people who sort of talk as though it's a moral issue, as though somehow it's actually morally wrong.
Yeah.
And that I don't entirely understand, because if the family who are responsible for making these decisions and who own the intellectual property are happy with it and want it to happen, and if there are millions, I mean, the books have altogether sold more than 1 million copies.
Wow. Yeah.
And if there are people in those numbers who really enjoy them and want to read them, then I don't see how it is doing any harm at all. Though I do understand people who just don't want. I mean, if the fact the Christie family hired someone to write Miss Marple novels, and that person was, I don't know, David Beckham, well, actually, I would read it.
Just out of curiosity, yeah.
But I might think, oh no, I don't want to read Miss Marple written by David Beckham. But I would recognise that then I could just decide not to read those books.
Yeah, we do all have the choice what we pick up to read.
So I do find it really odd. And there was one chap on Twitter who felt very strongly that my books about Poirot shouldn't exist. And I actually asked him straight out, I said, well, what would you then say to all the people who do want to read them? Like, if they exist, then you don't have to read them or even think about them. But if they don't exist, then all those people who do want to read them can't. Yeah. And that did stop him in his tracks a bit.
Yeah, because you've got all of those people that are enjoying what you're doing, and a couple of people that just aren't. Go and read something else. Just read a Sophie Hannah novel. No, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you ever so much for your time. I know we were a little bit rushed, but we've got Mark Billingham to go and see. But yes, thank you very much. It's been very, very fascinating, and I'm looking forward to your musical, your murder mystery musical. Thank you very much.
Thank you.